You're welcome back to the conversation on News Central Television. We apologize for the technical glitches earlier, but let's get straight into the discussion with Kolawole Oluwadare, Deputy Director at SERAP. Now, Kola, let's begin with the allegations made by the Nigeria Extractive Industries Report 90. Can you walk us through how 90 arrived at the conclusion that over $15 billion in oil revenues and 200 billion naira meant for refinery repairs are unaccounted for in 2020 and 2021? It's mind-boggling, to say the least.
Thank you very much, Gbenga. When one understands the legal framework that guides the actions of NAITI, which is NAITI Act 2007, and the historical antecedent, the context that gave birth to NAITI as a branch of the International Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, one would understand the function of NAITI. Now, NAITI has been doing this year in, year out. This is one of the series and that the reports that released previously. And so NAITI is a major stakeholder in the petroleum industry that does an audit. Call it it's an audit because it's looking at the procedural regularities in all the transactions, both in the upstreams and downstream sector of the petroleum industry. And so, for instance, in the 2021 report, NAITI had chronicled clearly how the FRS, that's the Federal Inland Revenue Service, has been owed taxes amounting to $13 million from the various transactions supervised by the NNPC, from the various companies.
Hello, Kola Oluwadare, are you there? We seem to have lost audio connection with you. Okay, we seem to have lost audio connection with Kola, but if you're just joining, this is the conversation on News Central Television, and we've been speaking to Kola Oluwadare, the Deputy Director of SERAP, where the organization is urging President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to initiate a presidential panel to investigate the allegations of the disappearance of over $15 billion in oil revenues and 200 billion naira allocated for refinery repairs between 2020 and the year 2021, as revealed by the Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative 90. SERAP has emphasized the importance of naming and shaming and also prosecuting those responsible for this huge missing funds and implementing NAITI's recommendations in its 2021 report. And SERAP has also argued that such actions are crucial to ensuring justice, accountability, and transparency, and also preventing negative consequences such as increased national debt and also diminished public trust. And it's because of this that we're engaging in this discussion with Kola Oluwadare. We hope to have him back soon because there's so much to unpack from this report. Now, we have Kola Oluwadare on the phone, so I'll just let you conclude your opening statement with regards to NITE's findings.
Thank you very much, Gbenga. So, NITE in this report has quoted more than 20 recommendations, which is an excerpt of what their findings have been in the auditing process of the oil and gas industry for 2021. And it's really not only mind-boggling when we look at the figures, but the actions, and then you can call them the backroom politics that have led to these sums. And I'll just go through a few of them. So, for instance, the media said that like over $6 billion was deducted as expenditure, which was not which was in the national budget in 2021. And so this was extra appropriation spending that didn't have no legal basis in terms of either appropriation or supplementary appropriation. And then we're talking about the outstanding liabilities that also have been paid to the coffers of the federal government to the Federal Revenue Service. NAITI also found that over $13 million are yet to have been paid as of 1st July 2023. And it's very important that you look at the recommendations of NAITI. Don't forget, NAITI is an industry watch and a key stakeholder and also an agency of government. NAITI is then recommended that the NNPC, which of course have been involved in now, the NPDC should be thoroughly investigated, and other companies that also actors in this regard should be investigated, and they should be made to fund this fund. And also over $8 billion that should have been paid to the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission. Of course, already paid as at December 2021. And these figures go on and on and on. Basically, what we can find is that it is either the petroleum industry, which of course is a major export, which guarantees economic survival, is either not properly managed, or there are perhaps individuals who are looking the other way while all this is going on, which is why in this instance, the court naturally stops at the table of the president. And by experience, of course, and by law as it were, he is the Minister of Petroleum. So naturally, he should take steps to investigate these allegations. Most importantly, get those funds returned and make sure that individuals who are found culpable face the law.
Now, like Kola, you can overstress the importance of the petroleum industry to Nigeria's economy. It's the mainstay of our economy. It's the goose that lays the golden egg. And from what you've said so far, from what we've established in NITE's reports, is that there's a lot of rot in the petroleum industry in Nigeria, and transparency is very key as a matter of public interest, and that's why SERAP is also staying on this issue. Transparency is important in key situations like this. SERAP has called for a presidential panel of inquiry to investigate these allegations. What specific powers and resources, in your opinion, should such a panel have to ensure a thorough and impartial investigation? And should there be a timeline to this investigation?
Gbenga, perhaps these might look like an overkill, asking for a special panel, but really, you would understand that this is a situation of desperate measures. These are desperate times, and we call for desperate measures. And so the president is by nature, at least of the way of things, the way things stand, is the Minister of Petroleum. And these huge sums of money that could not only help Nigerians, but that could bolster our faltering economy, have been lost or missing, or perhaps stolen. The least the president can do is to ensure that these ugly trend is reversed. But much more importantly, NITE has made this allegation, and NITE is an agency of government. So naturally, the president should set up this panel with sweeping powers to investigate. And they have a basis for which to start. The NITE document, the report, the oil and gas report for 2021 is a base for which they can start. And NITE has gone through its own internal process, which of course we can validate as being very thorough to arrive at these conclusions. So that panel will have powers to examine documents, examine the books of each of the stakeholders in the petroleum industry, and of course also hear evidence as it were, and then make recommendations to the president. And we've had a lot of examples for this. For the first time, the president Buhari did that for NEDC based on the perceived corruption that was in NEDC at that time, even though that report wasn't published. So this legislation also calls for such very far-reaching measures to ensure that these funds do not end up escaping Nigeria, and most importantly, that those who are found culpable also face the law. So really, that panel should have wide powers, basically to investigate, submit a report to the president, and naturally, who can take action on those recommendations. But even without the investigative panel, the NITE report, as it were, contains enough evidence that should be the basis for any criminal prosecution. If the president wants to do that, like we have the ICPs, we have the EFCC, their mandates are clear that the law has set them up. They can also investigate those reports as well to ensure that justice is done.
Now, Kola, we kind of emphasize the culture of impunity when it comes to operations in the oil and gas industry, especially NNPC and NPDC failing to remit monies to the national treasury. The government has always come to Nigerians and say, there's a cabal, when it came to subsidy, there's a cabal that is running the subsidy regime. It's a fraudulent thing, but the federal government has the apparatus of state. They have the Navy and every other thing under their command. No individuals or groups should be more powerful than the state. And I believe that's why you wrote this letter. Your organization, SERAP, urged the president to name and shame those responsible. Kola, can you provide us with any insight into who these individuals or entities might be based on your analysis? And why is it that in time past, governments seem to be helpless in prosecuting and dealing with these individuals that threaten? I mean, this is economic sabotage, to say the least.
Unfortunately, the NATO report does not mention individuals, but it does. It mentions the corporations, of course, majorly government corporations who are complicit. And we know that these corporations are manned by individuals who are public officers. So naturally, they have a case to answer. They have a case to answer in that the NATO report has shown that things were not properly done, that the funds are missing. So these people who had manned these corporations either in the past or who are manning them now should be able to come forward to explain. These funds are not missing. If they are somewhere, they should be able to explain. And these reports contain details, amounts, against the government, time stamps, and their duration. So I see no reason why this report cannot solve this problem once and for all. If government is there. To give you an example, Gbenga, in the report, as part of the recommendations that NAITI had made, NAITI also reached out to these stakeholders for their responses to their findings in the audit. And it's very interesting to know that the NNPC response to the over $88 billion that has not been accounted for is, according to the NAITI report, is that, I'm quoting the NNPC response now, that a committee has been set up by the federal government with the regulators and state-owned enterprises to carry out a detailed reconciliation on this. Then, how does that sound? Does that look like a good response to more than $8 billion missing? Of course it's not. And so this really calls for important action on the part of the president at this time, at least to demonstrate to Nigerians that he has the will to fight corruption.
Now, Kola, you mentioned something very important in your submission. You said, you know, these are some of the organizations named federal government institutions and organizations, but they're not headed by ghosts. They're human beings there. Now, given the disparity between funds allocated for refinery rehabilitation and the absence of any operational refineries, what specific investigative actions or punitive actions to be taken to determine the whereabouts of this money? This is a lot of money, taxpayers' money. They've paid this money for a particular task, and it's not been done. If it was in the private sector, but the individuals would be languishing in jail. There will be serious repercussions for this. But why does it seem that when it comes to government agencies and government public institutions, there's always that lack of accountability, and it seems there's a culture of impunity that, you know, they can get away with anything?
I think the issue as it stands, if we have to summarize, of course there are many issues that are around it, boils down to lack of political will. And I use political will to also mean that the legal framework that empowers public officers, including the president, to take action, and the failure of those structures, political will, the individuals who man sensitive positions to take action. In this instance, on the part of the president. And it's again very interesting to note that even the NAITI itself, in relating on their findings as to the update on the refineries, even recommended that a special investigation should be instituted to establish the status of the refineries. The NAITI itself noted, and I think this is common knowledge, this has been in the public domain for a while, that in 2020 and 2021, about 200 billion there was spent on the refineries, and there is nothing to show as an output from those refineries. So naturally, I think that's been on for a while. Why hasn't action been taken? It is simply because previous administrations, including this administration, lack that political will to take action. Gbenga, it is not for absence of laws. It is not for absence of statutory institutions that can't ensure that people don't get away with wrongdoing and ensure the Nigerians get benefits of state funds. It is simply a lack of political will. And in this instance, it's something of a double jeopardy. For those people living in Nigeria Delta, from where most of these actions are taking place, they've lost all. They've lost their means of livelihood. They've lost their environment. And now, the funds that should come into the coffers of the government that should be of benefit to everyone, including themselves, they are not even getting the benefit of that. And really, this is urgent and serious. And at least the president can do in this instance is to ensure that this is investigated and it shouldn't go the way of other probes.
Now, finally, Kola, before I let you go, where does the National Assembly come in this, in its oversight functions? Because, I mean, they can't allow this level of impunity go on. And looking at the bigger picture, what systemic changes do you believe Nigeria needs to make in its governance and financial systems to prevent allegations of corruption and missing funds from arising in the future? Because there's become one too many.
I think one of the things the Nigerians can do is to actively take part in the governance process. And not only take part in the political process, but the governance process. The 2023 elections have come and gone. And perhaps those the various election petition panels are still delivering judgments. But really, we shouldn't get ahead of that. We should hold those who are presently in office to account for their various actions. So in this instance, like your reference, the National Assembly has oversight the functions over these institutions. Can Nigerians begin to take steps to ask members of the National Assembly what they are doing in this regard, and to ask critical questions as to what has happened to previous probes? And that, I believe, will set the stage to let the National Assembly know that this time, if they take any step to start any kind of probe into allegations of malfeasance in any public institution, they should be able to deliver and ensure that the outcome of those findings are not only made public, but they ensure that those recommendations are followed. It is very important that Nigerians take active part in governance, as we seem to take active part in politics. It's a good way to go.
Okay. Thank you very much, as always, Kolawole Oluwadare, Deputy Director, SERAP, for your time and insights on the conversation. Thank you.